Welcome to the Inside Britball podcast. My name's Andy Taylor, and there's a full house this week. We've got Stuart, Kiwi, and Isaac joining me to break down everything that is week 6. That was just a mental week because we're talking just about the contact side with some pads and helmets. We're not even talking about the flag this time, but we will get together with Aaron to bring you that for sure. And what we're going to try and do is try and keep it as brief as possible while covering what felt like thousands of fixtures that happened over the weekend that we still managed to get out there. So Stuart and I were in the background trying to collate as many scores as possible. And thank you for those who came to us, as well as us going to you guys as well to try and get those results. But I'm not even going to do niceties. Let's just crack on with it because there's so much to get into, isn't there? And thank you, Kiwi, for stepping in last week when I was on the shelf, let's say. Let's move swiftly into the CEFL because on the Saturday, obviously Bristol were travelling to Sweden via Norway to get to place the Karlstad Crusaders in the second round of the CEFL, and unfortunately came out 35-0 defeat there for them, which it's straight knockout this competition, isn't it? So it's disappointing, I suppose, but Stuart, I presume that they're actually going to be happy with the experience. They're not going to come away upset about that, are they? Because they're the first to get through to the second round for as long as I can remember. And 35-0, although they probably would have preferred to score, etc. I think in the context of things as well, I don't want to take all the words out of your mouth, but in the context of this, the sandwich of results that they've had the last few weeks, they've done all right there, haven't they?
Yeah, I think, as you say, they'll be happy with where they've got to. I don't think they'll be particularly happy with this result because you can't particularly be happy with a 35-0 loss. I didn't have many eyes on it because me, Kiwi and Aaron were at the women's nines in Birmingham. I had it on my phone for the first half, and it just seemed that Karlstad were able just to grind out drives, whereas Bristol just seemed to lose momentum on a couple of them. Their punts weren't as reliable as usual. So I think it was just little things that compiled up to the bigger scoreline. Interestingly as well, while I was at Birmingham, one of the Bristol coaches was in Birmingham, and I was like, "You're not meant to be in this country, mate." So he was letting me know that they didn't travel fully out there, which also might have played a part in this. He didn't travel because it was a family member's birthday party. But yeah, he was saying that there was a couple of guys that didn't travel, which also has a knock-on effect. So fair play, really well done to Bristol for getting this far. You have to think that, if they go deep into the domestic league this season, they may well try again next year.
Yeah, and bigger picture, it's kind of a great thing to see, isn't it, that they have been as successful as they have been able to, regardless of where they are in the season, what's happening domestically, etc. But to be able to even go over there and put up a fight is really good going. And Isaac, I suppose this isn't going to be a dampener for them, is it really? But it is two losses on the bounce now, so they're going to have to bounce back quickly, aren't they? And we'll talk about some of the the fixtures that are going to come up for them in the coming weeks as well, aren't we? In a little while.
Yeah, it comes as kind of a shock really for the Aztecs because you saw how what potential they had throughout the game on their defense. Multiple interceptions throughout the game, but offensively they just couldn't get going. Really, I think they only had about in the 40s. 40 yards of offensive the entire day. And as a squad though, if you look on the roster and you can look at some of the names, you're thinking they should be doing better than that. So I don't know whether it's because obviously we don't really know anything about Karlstad. So is it really how good they are, or is it just this is their third game in a row? How tired are the Aztecs, and what are they like going for the rest of the season?
Yeah, and Kiwi, you can kind of speak for that a little bit, can't you? Because it's difficult to keep the momentum going, isn't it? And 2 games in a row is tough. 3 games in a row is even tougher, and there'll soon be 4 games in a row if they consider this week as well.
Yeah, and that's what we've kind of been saying the last few weeks, isn't it? Is how many times can they pick themselves up week to week, back to back, to play these tough games, right? None of these games were easy. They've had a really tough slate of schedule. So, as much as we all wanted to see them do well, it is hard to kind of play that many games and that many tough games in a row. And as you've alluded to, and we'll cover later, they've got one more still to come that's still going to be a big game for them. So, hopefully they can pick themselves up and I think we will see them back next year. I don't think we've got any doubt that we're going to see them go deep into the postseason right at this point, probably. So, I'd like to think that they will build on this next year and come back even stronger in the European League.
Yeah. Every time I've spoken to Coach Jones, the head coach there at Bristol, they've said is that they just want to play the best every week, and so they'll relish that. They'll take the experience, especially for a number of those guys who've been there for years and will be there for years to come, and they'll relish that, won't they? So it'll be great to see how they get on, and we'll talk about another fixture coming up later. So a bit more closer to home, let's have a little look at what happened in the adult contact leagues first. First up, we've got the Prem, and no points scored across home teams. What the? So just to recap, we've got Titans travelled to Vikings and scored 66-0. Rushmore Nice travelled to the Cambridgeshire Cats and won 35-0, and London Blitz travelled to the Hertfordshire Cheetahs and won 45-0. So away walkovers effectively, but Isaac, dare I ask you which was the biggest surprise this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for all of us up in the north. I don't think realistically that anyone expected this, especially from this Northern Conference, that this season we've seen where they've struggled to score points. This is the highest scoring game I think we've had so far this season by quite a long shot, and by a side that in the first game couldn't score. So it is quite a big surprise, I think, for most people. It's kind of surprising as well that Newcastle didn't really have anything to answer from, because they've been top quality as well from the start of the season. So yeah, it's kind of surprising on both sides of how good Manchester was, but also how Newcastle struggled.
Mm-hmm. Kiwi, it's kind of is it probably more worrying for Newcastle than it is better for Manchester, because these two were 1 and 2 last year, weren't they? There's a gulf between them based on this fixture.
Yeah, it's interesting, and obviously I don't know much about how the game went or where they have ultimately lost out, but we said that this week was going to really already be kind of make or break for Manchester's season to an extent, right? They had that big loss last week, and then if they really wanted to continue to do well and they couldn't keep losing, they needed to bounce back and play hard and win the game, and this shows that they can do that. I guess the question for me is, did Manchester just suddenly get really good overnight after that loss, or did Newcastle have something else going on where they're struggling? Because this isn't a score that I expected to see in this game, if I'm honest. So you got to wonder as well, was there injuries, was there changes, was there, because I didn't expect Newcastle particularly to not score and then to also lose by such a big margin.
Mm-hmm. Fourth game in 5 weeks, third on the bounce for Newcastle. To your point, just to add to that. But Stuart, let's look a little bit further south, unless you want to have a talk about obviously this Titans drubbing of Newcastle. But there was some. We can kind of see the gap forming in the south, can't we? And what's more impressive to me is that the Blitz haven't conceded in 3 games against those opponents around them. But what's your take on this Prem results?
Yeah, you mentioned that sort of disparity between the top and the bottom. Interestingly, the Cambridge Rushmore game, I believe, was 0-0 at half time. So all of those 35 points came in the second half. I think Rushmore's defence kind of stepped up. I have a feeling that they got a couple of interceptions or fumble recoveries. I've seen a video going around on socials from somebody who's kind of done a bit of a review of the game. And it's fantastic coverage from the guy that's involved. And it looks like he's going to do a few more bits and bobs. So I'll keep my eyes on sort of that profile. But from the looks of it, Cambridge held their own in that first half. it was just that offensive fluidity that obviously wasn't quite there yet. And then obviously London Blitz have continued to do what they've done all season, and that's just put points up, which is, a bit of a surprise based on last year. But you think, okay, have they recruited well over the summer? Have they got back some of the guys that potentially fell away during that collapse this sort of last summer, perhaps? We don't know, obviously, behind the scenes what has happened, but it looks like they've regathered their thoughts, recuperated, and gone again.
Yeah, and for Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire, they'll be disappointed with their start, won't they? Because they I'm sure they would have wanted to develop from last year, and they were joined by a difficult team in the Rushmore Knights, and then London Blitz have now obviously made a turn for the better for them, but still they'll both be disappointed that they're now the bottom of the table. They'll both be looking for points against each other now, won't they? And who knows what will happen with Rushmore as we get deeper season, but it's not looking like a good start for them, and hopefully they can bounce back, which for Hertfordshire might not be this week coming up, but it might be in a few weeks when they play each other, which will be a crucial game for both of them, won't it? To try and kickstart that season. London Blitz have played the same number of games as Warriors and Aztecs, scored more, conceded less. Now, they haven't faced Bristol Aztecs or the London Warriors yet. We will see that very soon, of course. But they are taking care of business against those that were around them last year, weren't they? Without labouring the point, I'm just into what the thought that came to my mind with the North is, with Manchester doing this to the Vikings, and obviously we've got Manchester EKP coming up very soon. I think that might be this week. Does that say something to how good Coventry Phoenix's defense is? Or like Kiwi said, have they just found something this week and it just went all perfectly right and they just didn't pull the foot off the gas? I'm not necessarily putting it out there for you guys to answer. It's just wondering where this division's going, and is it going to be the immovable object and the unstoppable force coming up against each other at the end of the season?
I mean, the Titans have put out a highlights reel this evening on their Instagram account, and a lot of their touchdowns were sort of splash plays. I'm talking like 45 to 60 yard plus touchdowns, whether that be runs, passes. They had a pick six. I think they got multiple turnovers through interceptions, different players. So I think, all three phases kind of clicked on Sunday. When they travelled. Sunday or Saturday? I want to say it was Saturday. Sunday? It's this Saturday that someone's playing then.
Yeah.
And you sort of see that all three clicked. Newcastle were on QB3. Their first quarterback's still on holiday, as far as I'm aware. And I'm not sure what happened to QB2. So, there's another item going against the Vikings. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend when they're back, and to see whether the same Manchester turns up and whether they can click on all three. I still don't know if it's being live streamed. They did last year. They streamed from Bellevue. But as soon as we know and we hear anything, we'll get it shared across.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's have a little move on to Division 1 then, where we had a whole slate of games. Unfortunately, Solent and Bournemouth couldn't happen. They obviously announced their unexpected visitor into their fields there. So, obviously that had to be postponed. They couldn't find another venue. So that's very difficult. Hopefully that is a postponement and not a cancellation. They'll be able to hopefully get that rearranged. Once we find out, we will let you know. But Isaac, I'll give you first dibs of kind of like what stands out to you across this slate of results that we've got in front of us.
Yeah, so last week when we were speaking, we said that the Scunthorpe Alphas really need to win, and that they needed them really to have any sort of hopes of the playoffs at the end of the season, and they did it against a great opponent in the Merseyside Nighthawks, who this season have looked promising. They've got themselves wins and they know how to win. So it just shows realistically how good these Scunthorpe Alphas can be on their day. It's a shame that it's taken till this long to see what they can do, and that they haven't really taken anything to the Yorkshire Rams as of yet. But no, that's the one that really stands out for me, that now puts a bit of pressure on on Merseyside and Scunthorpe, as we see them two really battling for that second spot in the Northern Conference.
Yeah, who was the best of the rest, and we got a taste of who that might be with that 50-21 win over the Merseyside Nighthawks for sure. Kiwi, is there anything that you picked up from this Division 1 games that you were interested in?
I know, and I think we've mentioned it in the last couple of podcasts. It was nice to see Chester Romans get some offensive points on the board, right? We hadn't seen any yet this season. And it's a good win for them, I think. It was always one of those where it was, where are they going to struggle? Where are they going to manage to win any games this season? So it's nice to see them, go to Sheffield, do well, score points and win a game. So, I think that's good to see. And hopefully it means that at least at the other end of the table where they may likely end up, there's still a bit of competition for who's going to stay up and who's going to stay down. I don't think it's ever good to see a team go winless in a season and, get relegated or play promotion relegation this year. But yeah, I think that was something that really stood out to me. And then the Shropshire Stanwell 13-13 I thought was quite interesting. I was surprised that it had come out as a draw that game. I thought it might be a little bit more one way, but yeah, I think that's a good result for Stanwell, obviously. And I think Shropshire probably were targeting that one for a win, so maybe a little bit disappointed that they've come away with a draw on that one, I think. But yeah, obviously a close game.
Yeah, I take your point for the bottom of the north there because, Chester got a win, go 1-3, Sheffield go 0-3, and they've really got to find something, haven't they, Sheffield? Otherwise, it's going to be a very long season for them. And Chester get to host them later in the season as well, don't they? So, a difficult one for sure. Stuart, I wonder whether you're going to point out a different Midlands game or dare I take your words out of your mouth?
No, I mean, the guys have kind of covered the bigger, I was going to say issues. They're not issues. The bigger results from the weekend. I'll cover the Scotland game because Clyde Valley sent us a message about one of their players that suffered quite a severe injury. And by the end of the day, all signs were looking good. He'd had all sorts of scans and tests, and he was going to be released. So I hope that they've made a good recovery during this beginning part of the week. We might reach out to them again and just check how they're doing. But they said they struggled against a really quality Glasgow team. So yeah, it looks like Glasgow could be that team in Scotland that this year really goes to push on. You mentioned the other game in the Midlands. I was officiating the Staffordshire Northants game, which was a phenomenal fixture, to be honest. It doesn't sound it would have been 21-12, but it was really, really tight game. Staffordshire just found that little bit more on offence than Northants did, which is kind of obvious with the score, but Northants got a couple of big plays in the third quarter that just sort of made it look a little bit more comfortable, but I thought Staffordshire were really good on that day, which is kind of a flip from the previous week when Northants beat Staffs and Staff said they had a really bad day at the office. So, that's kind of reflective in the scores there. And just, to touch on what Kiwi said about the Shropshire Sandwell game, there was a couple of injuries in that one as well that I think kept the scoring down. Sandwell's running back got injured, and I can't remember whether it was Shropshire's quarterback or a receiver that got injured that sort of hampered their offensive productivity. So, it sounds like we're just giving teams reasons for lack of production, that there are obviously more talent than one person. But yeah, once you have your sort of stud player or main offensive weapon go down, it's a little bit difficult if you've game planned all week for that to be your staple.
Depth isn't something that is renowned British American football. It's always going to be difficult if any sort of starter goes down. But those results from the Midlands allows Sandwell to sit on top of Division 1 Midlands now, being the only undefeated team. So it really surprising to see them up there. Although they obviously are very good outfit this season. We can't go without talking about how East Kent Mavericks got one over on relatively local rivals, Essex Tridents 42-5, and Wembley Sussex beating them 60-0. I think it was something like 30 at half time as well. So well done to both of those teams, because that puts Wembley well in the driving seat in their division in the Central. There's daylight between them and the rest. And East Kent Mavericks are now keeping up with London Olympians, which was kind of like a two-way race that was happening last year as well, if memory serves me correctly. So, very interesting slate of games there. Let's swiftly move on then to Division 2, where we had a number of interesting results. Isaac, I'm going to come to you first, because the first thing that stands out to me is a question, is what has happened to Darlington? Because Darlington were a favourite. They started off relatively well. They were a playoff team last year, and they're practically in free fall, aren't they?
Yeah, so they lost their head coach from last season. They made the announcement in between week 1 and week 2, so we don't know whether he's left after week 1 or he's left before the season. But they announced that he will leave, and they've got new head coaching. And with that, a lot of their players have now left. They've brought their old head coach back in, and it seems as if it's not clicking as of right now. You've seen that they can still score points, and back at the start of the season, the reverse fixture of this game, Darlington won 46-35, and it showed that both sides can score points at will. But Gateshead over these last few weeks, all you need to have a look is the game against Doncaster, where it's scoring 54, and they have the ability just to do this to teams. Going forward into the season, it's something that Gateshead is really going to have to rely on, and Darlington realistically just need to all come together and just see if they can emulate what they did last year, even though they've lost a lot of their bigger name players. They had lads who played in Germany, have Prem experience, and they've lost all them in the off season. So it's going to be interesting to see how they can bounce back from that realistically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Kiwi, I'll bounce to you as well. What else sticks out to you across Division 2 this weekend?
What stood out to me is obviously the Lister Panthers went over the Lancashire Bucks. That's quite a hefty scoreline there as well, 38-0. And also just how close those matches were in the East. Ipswich, Oxford 18 to Oxford, 19 to Ipswich. And then Ouse Valley 18, Norwich 6. Both really close games, only a couple of scores in it. So, it's always hard in Division 2, because I feel like you get such a gulf of teams, the ones that have come down from Div 1 and the ones that have been sitting around in Div 2 for a while. So still being able to see not all of the games be a blowout, I think is good for everybody, because sometimes you really see that difference in teams at the Division 2 level.
Mm-hmm. We've got a bit of a gap forming in SFC2 East, haven't we, Stuart, where Oxford have now won 3 on the bounce. Ouse Valley have won now 2-1, and they seem to be the two that are taking it away. And then we've got Ipswich and Norwich, who unfortunately aren't keeping up to this point, although only 3 games gone. Interesting set of results, aren't they? Because although you may have predicted 2 of them, you probably didn't predict the SFC2 West score, though.
No, that was a weird one. But we always say it's always hard to beat a team that you play 3 times in a season. And Hereford took the first 2 matchups, and it looks like Swindon have managed to find that weakness that Hereford might have had. And they've come away with that small 5-point deficit. Obviously, it's still not enough to take the head-to-head if it comes down to that. But yeah, it might mean that they could finish above Plymouth, depending on how results fall. It looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race between Plymouth and Swindon for that second spot, depending on how Plymouth and Hereford go, because we haven't seen that fixture yet this season. So it'll be interesting to see how the top of that division settles. And then after the first seed's been sorted, who comes in at second and third.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. So we've got Swindon who obviously beat Hereford 19-14, and then we've now got to find out whether Swindon can take that against in a few weeks' time, and whether Hereford can bounce back. So very interesting results across Division 2 there. Now, that's the adult contact. Let's move over to NWFL, because you guys actually went to see some live football, and you went down to the University of Birmingham and saw 2 matchups, and I'm sure you were very happy with the decision to go, Kiwi.
Yeah, it was a great day of football. The weather was lovely. The venue's nice there. It's lots of space for people to watch. So yeah, it was a great day of football. Maybe the first game. So the first game we saw was Birmingham London. I think that maybe wasn't, and definitely for me wasn't the score I was expecting, or nor the game that I was expecting, if I'm honest. Obviously Birmingham 16, London 2, and just to say, I'm pretty sure that safety at the end that London conceded was kind of given up by Birmingham to avoid them giving away good field position. They took the safety. So really those kind of 2 points that London scored were kind of gifted to them by Birmingham, really. And if I'm honest, I thought that London really kind of struggled to move the ball. They didn't really seem to get much going on offense for the whole day. And in Birmingham were traditionally strong, a couple of good breakaway runs, and just a strong defensive unit that we know that they are. So yeah, a little bit of a shock maybe on that one, given also how close Britball was last year, right? So we were thinking, oh, who knows how it's going to go. So a good game, a different game, a very defensive game, I would say. And then you've got kind of the opposite in the Teesside Solent game, where you've got Teesside 34, Solent 30. And a lot of scoring, a lot of plays, a lot of, pounding out yards, particularly on the Teesside side of the ball. Some good runs, some hard running. So, yeah, it was interesting, and it was a much closer game. It kind of went right down to sort of the final minutes, because they were sort of a bit back and forth in the second half on scores. And at one point, Stuart and I were debating what the score was because we couldn't quite keep up from the sideline. And there was a little bit of debate about how many extra points there were and what the score was. But I think in the end, Stuart, you had actually had it right, even though I sent you to check with the referee. And then I was only going to say, just on the Teesside thing, I think there's been a little bit of debate about some of my comments around Teesside picking up some players, and I just want to say, obviously Teesside are a strong team. I've spent many seasons and many years playing them myself when I was at the Romans and then at the Bears. But any team that picks up 4 experienced players over the past couple of seasons, regardless of who you are, you pick up experienced players and it's going to improve your squad. And in fact, some of them, scored touchdowns. So not to say that Teesside aren't good, or that the only reason they're good is because of Leeds players, but it doesn't matter who you are. If you're picking up experienced players from quality opposition, then it's going to improve your team, right?
That's what teams try and do every year, every off season, is try and pick up experienced players from somewhere, right? Whether it's university or another team. And so Teesside being able to pick up a few Leeds players, then good for them, and it will help for sure. That's why they sit 1-1, and after a very close defeat to the champs, and they are almost certainly the third best team in the conference, and they'll be up for the London Warriors game, won't they? For sure. Definitely. When that comes around, assuming it comes around, of course. I haven't looked. Yes, I think in week 10.
I assume it will. Yeah, given there's only 5 teams in that division now, I assume we'll at least get to see everybody play each other. Yeah. So that's definitely one that I'm looking forward to whenever that comes around.
Yeah, and so Stuart, what did you pick up? Anything else to add?
No, I think the difference in the 2 games kind of shows what we've seen previously, the fact that the gap, I think, is closing between London and Birmingham and the rest. The fact that there was so many points put up by Teesside and Solent shows that they have been able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Birmingham and London, which is why the Teesside-Birmingham game was so close and the Solent-London game was so close. So I think that's one thing for us to keep our eye on, just how that gap between 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5 keeps developing throughout the rest of the season. By the best of my knowledge, we're still going to have a 4-team playoff So, we probably will still see 1 play 4 and 2 play 3. Where and when that happens, I don't know. But again, it will give a chance for maybe a team to throw a spanner in the works for the Brit Ball to go, okay, maybe it's just not going to be Birmingham and London this season.
And I think what's interesting on that, Stuart, is, as you say, because that gap is closing, it is highly possible, I would say, for the first time, probably ever in women's football, that we're not going to be sitting here going, we definitely know who the playoff teams, who's going to be in that final. Because, if as we assume Teesside and Solent are in 3 and 4, then yeah, they definitely have the capability to mix things up in those semi-finals.
Both teams have shown that they're dangerous to the top 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very, very good for the sport. It's really very good to see that there are 2 dangerous teams who could upset the apple cart. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they do in the regular season and then into the post as well. And Kiwi, we also had 7s. I know they said 9s. Sorry. We had 7s on as well. We had which obviously a group that you know very well. Not necessarily have as much experience playing Peterborough and Cardiff, but just a quick overview of the scores. We had Peterborough versus Cheshire, and that ended up being 20-0 to Peterborough. Cardiff beat Cheshire 19-18 in a close game there, and then Peterborough played Cardiff 18-0. So what are your takeaways from those?
The game that really stood out to me on this one is that Cardiff-Cheshire game. Has played a few times against Cardiff, and to be honest, they've always been on the smaller squad size, struggled a bit to get wins, and that definitely would have been a game that Cheshire were probably that they would win. So to see that come out on the opposite side was a bit of a shock. It was obviously a close game. I do know that Cheshire struggled. A lot of their key players and their OC weren't there at the weekend. So what had happened with a lot of fixtures is because of all the changes in the teams and stuff, they were given a set of fixtures. People booked time off work around those fixtures, and then the fixtures changed and the dates changed. And I know there were several people who couldn't make it from Cheshire to the tournament because their work schedule hadn't allowed, because they'd already booked other days off. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because this won't be the first tournament that's affected by that either. But for sure, I know that Cheshire were disappointed. They said they had a good day. Their team were happy. But yeah, obviously to come away with 2 losses is not ideal. Peterborough showing that they've learned a lot from 9s and dropping down, that they've got the dominance in this division, and I'm not surprised by that. I think we'll probably see Peterborough go, without any losses this season, because their caliber coming down from having that experience at 9s last season is really showing here. And then, I hope Cardiff continue to improve, and I'm sure they're very happy with their win over Cheshire.
Yeah, they were difficult to beat last year, if I remember correctly, Cardiff, weren't they? They upset a number of teams along the way. Mm-hmm. And if you close the gaps like you do from 9 to 7, then defence gets easier, doesn't it? To your point around the step down there. Okay, thanks for that, Kiwi. Let's move on to the under-19s then, because we had Division 1 up this week, didn't we? Isaac, what stands out to you in these fixtures that were there? Because there was some cracking games by the looks of it from the social media.
Yeah, we were talking last week about how we've got a lot of sides that are well established in under-19s and under-16s in sides, and you look at it with the Lancashire Buccaneers continuing their dominance in the U19s and U16s world with their 34-0 victory over the Chester Romans. That stands out quite a lot because it shows that there is a side who will be able to score loads but also shut out the side. Lancashire have a team that have got Bucks experience with the likes of a lot of the UCLan Rams will be joining the Lancashire Buccaneers as they are, close together and stuff. So it's going to be a really interesting one to see how they can perform when they face a side like Manchester, who can also score points, and they showed it last week. Yeah,
Manchester have clearly started to grow with each other. They've graduated through from under-16s and into under-19s. It's clear, showing that is working well for them in that division. Obviously disappointing for Sheffield. Manchester went away 46-13 winners there. I'm just quickly trying to see. I was wondering whether Ipswich won any games last year. So I was going to quickly check to see if that was the case, because I've got a feeling that might be Ipswich's first game, but I'm sure the Cardinals will take joy out of that, won't they, Isaac?
Yeah, especially, getting your first win on the board this season is always important, and it's something that you can springboard off of for the rest of the year. And to do it in the way they have, where they've scored, they have scored for obviously 3 touchdowns plus they can kick as well, which is always a good thing in U19s because not that many sides who can. So no, it's going to be a great springboard for them for the rest of the season. See where they can finish at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Let me check that because it's going to kill me if I've got that wrong in my head.
Are they new? I think they might be new to under 19s.
They were in under 19s last year, yeah. No, so they were in it, but they were with. It's basically the same division. They came away with 1 win, 4 losses last year, 1 draw. So I was wrong. I was just double checking. But this fixture last year, they lost 34-12 to the SLR. So good for them. It just stood out to me as a surprise result. But and just to mention also. Swindon couldn't gather enough players, apparently, according to Hertfordshire Cheetahs post. So they go away with a walkover win there, which is a shame because obviously it's Swindon's first. I think it was their first season in Division 1, wasn't it? I think they had a Div 2 last year. So very a shame that they weren't able to keep that going into this year. Any comments from anybody else? Or are you happy for me to move on to under 16s? Yeah, cool. Let's keep it rolling. So in under 16s, we had three tournaments this week. Up in the Midlands, hosted by Leicester Panthers. We had cracking results, didn't we, Stuart, across here? But nonetheless, Birmingham Lions came away 2-0. Coventry Phoenix came away 0-2. Unfortunate for them. Leicester Panthers came away 0-2, and then Northants took 2 victories as well.
Yeah, plenty of points scored by the winning teams in this one, right? But I think this probably went true to form. Birmingham Lions have kind of got that amalgamated U16, U19 link with the Lions Academy between the Bulls and the Lions. So I think that is coming to fruition now. They're able to know where their players are going. This is obviously the second season of that amalgamation, I think. So yeah, they've been able to get their guys in the right places now. Coventry, I think, will be a little bit disappointed. I know they said on socials that it was a little bit hard to take. So it's never good losing 13-0, but when it's 26-13, especially to a fairly close rival. But it's good to see that the Coventry U16 team has stood the test of time with their franchise move. Northants just dominating, doing really, really well. They actually sent some stats across, which is fantastic to see. And across the 2 games, their quarterback amassed the best part of 200 odd yards. Certainly the quarterback Callum, and he got at least 5 touchdowns. Whether they were passing or rushing, it doesn't actually say, but you would assume. Oh no, it does actually. It says rushing. Now I've scrolled down a bit. It says rushing touchdowns. So he may well have actually been their running back rather than their quarterback, because it says yards, attempts, touchdowns. So I would assume that Callum is probably their running back and not their quarterback. But their quarterback Josh. It says Joshua, but I just shortened it to Josh. He had a particularly good game in game 2. And then Lewis had a really good game in game 1. So it's really good to get these sort of stats so we can give the shout out, especially to the U16s who like to put stuff out and get celebrated so that they can then sort of develop their season. And we see with programs like Pride and stuff like that, who like to look to the youth of today, shall we call them. It's good to see these sort of stats. The receivers had particularly good days as well. There was 2 touchdowns in the first game, 1 to Ollie and 1 to Jaden. So, it's not just this. You assume they're on a small-sided pitch, so they're running the ball a lot. It looks like they're certainly in game 1 versus the Panthers. They had a very mixed attack with 2 rushing and 2 passing touchdowns. Game 2 against the Phoenix was a little bit different when all 4 of their touchdowns were actually rushing touchdowns. But yeah, full credit and thank you very much to the Knights who sent those stats across. Fantastic work.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the insight, because it's obviously very difficult to get this insight for age-related reasons, I suppose, isn't it? So if you can send it to us, that's really helpful. It gives us some insight into it. But no surprise to me that Northampton are dominating under 16s. So, 38-0 against Leicester and 30-0 against Coventry. And congrats to them. Should we switch on to the next one then? Because we had one in Poole, I think it was. Whoops, pressed it twice. So we had one in Poole in the southwest. And unfortunately, the hosts will be disappointed coming away with their 2 losses. South Wales Warriors came away with 1-1, and Swindon Storm continued their impressive work on 16s with 2 victories there. Any words? I mean, South Wales Warriors were it's their first under 16s team, I think, isn't it? So it's not. I think it's probably least surprising that Swindon Storm came away with those 2 victories. But well done to South Wales Warriors for getting that victory, right, Isaac?
Yeah, exactly that. And it looks to be a close game. So I think it looks as if that matchup for the rest of the year is going to be one that we watch quite a lot because of how close it is. It's 2 sides who are going to be very competitive with each other. It looks as if Swindon are just going to blow people out of the water this year, and that matchup between Poole and the Warriors is going to really be the test of each side to really gauge about where they are and if they can go into the playoffs this year.
Yeah. So my understanding is now they've now got two tournaments left, haven't they? This division itself. South Wales are 1-1, 2-2, and Poole are 0-4. So Poole, your finals for the next two tournaments is South Wales Warriors. Get the victories, get that head-to-head, and you've got a chance of making it into the postseason, haven't you? It's fun. It's odd seeing because you face each other then multiple times, and you almost get like repeated results unless you can really turn it around. And we kind of see how that's going unless Poole can pull it together, which I'm sure they're confident that they can. Let's keep moving on then. Quickly get through these because we've got as well, haven't we? So let's have a look at this then. So we've got in the southeast, it was hosted by Kent. We had Kent go 2-0. We had the Wembley Stallions go 0-2 just. Gosh, what a result that is. And then Hertfordshire Cheetahs went 1-1 alongside the some familiar sort of names here, which is great to see, isn't it? But Stuart, is there anything that stands out to you here, or Isaac, if you want to jump in?
I think for me, it's again the plethora of scoring, isn't it? We commented that these teams will see each other 4 times this month, or certainly there's 4 fixtures over the space of May, which is phenomenal. Next week's their only bye week, isn't it? And then they're back for 2 weeks on the trot. But to see these sort of points put up, obviously not in Wembley and Hertfordshire's case in those standalone games, but it's just phenomenal. It's almost like the OCs don't want to take any plays off. They're always looking to score every single play. Whereas, in other facets of the game, it's let's just get the first down. Let's chew the clock. Let's do this. But they're obviously looking to, go straight for the jugular and think, no, you know what? Let's get as many points as we can on the board.
I think what you find particularly, and I think maybe mentioned this last week, particularly with the 5s format, right? Having played it myself for a long time in women's football, is because those first downs is the halfway line and then it's a touchdown. You've got the smaller field and the 4 downs, a bit like what we see in flag as well. I think you do see a lot more. You see a lot of breakaway runs. You've only got 1, maybe 2 defensive players to beat. If you can find a bit of the space and get that first block done, then the chances of you scoring are quite high. And I think you see these kind of big scoring games in 5s particularly, because if you can, make those first kind of blocks stick on offense, then it's really hard to stop runaway run plays, right? If you've got a quick running back. Coming from a team that had won ourselves, it's really hard to kind of stop these scores. So I think 5s is a really difficult format for defenses because you've only got 1 downline man and then you've kind of got sort of a mix of kind of backers, 2 safeties or 4 linebackers. So once you kind of get past 1 person, you're almost odds on to get to the field. So it is a tough ask on defense, I think, the 5s format. So I'm not entirely surprised to see these big scores coming out of the 5s games, really.
probably makes Kent's defensive performance even more, isn't it? Considering that across 4 games they haven't conceded a point, which is just insane
Massively.
to hear, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I suppose, Isaac, you've played this format much sooner than I have. I suppose Wembley can take some confidence in the fact that although they are sitting bottom 0-4, score 48 points on a team.
Yeah, exactly, and that confidence in any format of the game is gonna be massive. If you can score that many points if that's 11-11, 9-7s, whatever it is, you're gonna feel as if you can score against anybody. And yeah, they failed to score against Kent, but it also shows how good that Kent are. So it's all about picking your battles and who to beat. Like we said with Poole and South Wales, their finals now are going to be against Ipswich and against a side that they know they can score against and perform well against.
Yeah, 100%. So amazing to see. So we've got Kent Exiles, who are obviously sitting at the top now, 4-0, and they've now got that head-to-head over Hertfordshire, who are just behind them, 3-1. Everybody else is chasing them, and so it's good to see. It's lovely having teams in a division, isn't it? Where when you've got those. You've got to show up when it's your turn on the tournament, and then you might have a tournament off and wait and see what happens and how that affects your next games and so on. It's really interesting to see, and I'm sure the tournament sort of style is really fun to be at as well. Okay, we're deep into it, so let's swiftly go through a much quieter weekend for us in comparison to this weekend. So let's have a little look to see what fixtures we've got ahead of us, because in the Prem we've got some tasty fixtures there, haven't we, guys? Isaac, I'll give you first dibs. What's standing out to you this week?
It's that Manchester EKP one. Yeah, no, I'm picking the North again, but it like we've said before, the EKP defense has been incredible so far this season, and last week Manchester showed that they can score. But playing 3 games in a row for Manchester is going to be a tough ask, and they're going to have to come out this week and really show what they can do, and see if they can, rally the troops again and go again against an EKP side who will look, to put the O on them again.
Yeah, and Kiwi, anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I'm excited about the North game, but I'm actually excited about the Blitz Aztecs game. Right, we said. And we alluded to it when we spoke earlier about how Bristol had the other 4th fixture on the bounce that was going to be tough. We know that Blitz have been performing well, but we've not seen them of the big 2 teams yet, being Warriors and the Aztecs. So this will be our first. How well they're actually doing versus the 2 teams that we feel are probably likely at the top. Are they going to be challenging for one of those playoff spots? I think this will be the game that might give us that indication of whether they're the best of the rest, or they're challenging the 2 at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Britball, that's what they're going to have to do, isn't it, Bristol? But then London, let's see how good they are. Stuart, what about yourself?
I think for me it'll be to see how much the Cheetahs can kind of stem the Warriors. They obviously had a week off from the Bristol game, did they? Pretty sure they did, didn't they? I'm really trying to think back now. But
yes.
Anyway,
the Warriors, yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, we had such a busy weekend. I can't remember who played and who didn't. There was 30 individual standings graphics, which have blown my brain. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the Cheetahs can sort of stem that Warriors tide, see what they can do and if they can do anything there. And then they can go into a bye week for the GB bye week next week and look to then get on the road with a couple of fixtures against teams sort of in and amongst them at the bottom of that Prem South there. Yes,
stay healthy and come back from the GB bye week where you've got a really important game against the Cambridgeshire Teachers, haven't you? That's Cambridgeshire Cats. That is. So yeah, it's a difficult time to be a Cheetah, but hopefully they can find something that they can build on, taking it into the last part of the season for sure. Let's have a quick look at a big slate across Division 1. So Stuart, I'll give you first dibs at this because there's plenty of intriguing matchups from what I can see. Obviously, we've got one of the associate fixtures, haven't we, running this week, which is the Inverclyde Goliaths versus Aberdeen Roughnecks. But out of the others, what are you interested in this week?
I'm starting the other end of the graphic. I'm going South Wales Warriors, Bristol Apache. That game, I think they're back down in Llanharan, the rugby club there. So I think Bristol have to just make the short hop along the M4 down the south coast of Wales there and play against a South Wales team which tend not to concede much at home. So it'll be interesting to see how the Apache can travel and see whether they can take the victory away from that. And then the one above that, Stallions Blitz B. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that fixture with those two teams sort of vying for the top of the table contenders in the South Central.
Yeah, I think we said that a number of times about the Blitz B, haven't they? And they do sit 1 and 2 at the moment, but we've always expected a little bit more, haven't we? And understand your point. Isaac, what about yourself?
Yeah, it's the Merseyside against Yorkshire game. Yorkshire are currently flying high, 4-0, beating the side that could have challenged them for the top spot. But now they face a Nighthawks side that are coming off a heavy loss, are looking to bounce back to have their own playoff hopes. So that looks like it's going to be a game with everything on the line, a whole lot to play for with both sides going for it no matter what.
Yeah, what sort of side can Merseyside bring? Because I know it looked like they had a small squad that travelled to Scunthorpe at the weekend. What difference does a home fixture make for them, I suppose? And Kiwi, there's a number across here, but there's probably not many that are different. But presumably you're going to be looking a little bit closer to home as well.
Yeah, obviously can Chester repeat the win that they got and get that, finalise that head-to-head over Sheffield, which could prove key at the end of the season. I'm also interested in the Berkshire Sussex game. I think, both those teams are sitting 3-1 at the moment. Bottom part of that table, I suppose, you've got at least 3 teams all sitting there on 3-1. It could prove quite important again to how they shake out at the end of the season. So I think that also is going to be an interesting one.
I think it's 1 and 2 at the moment. They all are, but yeah, still take your points.
Oh, sorry, sure 1 and 2. Yeah,
that you're accurate there. But no, interesting across the board. Not many huge games, is there? I think there's loads of very interesting ones. What sort of changes will they make to the season for a couple of them? But feels like it'll be interesting to see what results come out of this and how it shakes it up. I'll be interested in looking at the standings after all these to see what sort of moves they make. Let's have a little look at Division 2 then. Only a couple of them this week. Only 3 fixtures. Yeah, Isaac, I'll give you first dibs.
Lincolnshire against Lee, 2 sides that this season haven't really done much. They struggle to score. Both sides are struggling to win, and it's going to be great to see these 2 go against each other. And I think it's going to be a really good thing for both of these sides to face against one another and see what they're really made of and see how good these sides really can be. So I think it's going to be very competitive, and I think that's what the main thing is at this level as well, is to be competitive with another team and and enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it's been a while since Lincolnshire have had a victory. It's been even longer since Lee have had a victory.
It's like a season and a half for Lincoln. So yeah.
No, Lincoln had a couple of victories last year. I think they beat Donny.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Last year, didn't they? But Lee have gone a full season without a victory. So, that'll be an interesting one for sure. Stuart, anything from yourself?
I'm looking at that southeast fixture. Both of those teams, both of those teams will want to take the victory to sort of keep up with the Saints at the top of that division and try and take a real good hold of that second seed down there in the east.
Yeah, and then we've got bottom in the north there, haven't we, with Humber versus Donny. Humber, who are steamrolling that division at the moment, aren't they? And have you faced them yet, Isaac? I don't know if you've had them yet.
Who? Humber?
Humber. You had them?
Yes. Yeah, we played them first game of the season. Yeah.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Very, very good side. Yeah, a side that blitz quite a lot and will easily send 8 people blitzing every single time. so it'd be interesting to see if Donny can match up to that and see what they can really do.
Understood. Kiri, I think we've covered all the fixtures now at this point. So should we leave the NWFL for you then? Because we do have a Nines fixture this week, which is those Teesside Steelers who were on a roll travelled to Manchester, not to play the Manchester Titners. They're playing the Manchester Titans. But let's skip over that one quickly. Might have gone unnoticed.
Obviously, that's for who can see the graphic. This is a bit of a typo going on there. And he's not just decided to reinvent the women's team name. I'd like to. I think. Sorry. I think that.
I thought I missed it.
I think that Teesside are going to dominate this game, if I'm honest. We obviously saw Solent beat Manchester quite heavily in their first game, and obviously we saw the game between Teesside and Solent last week, and I fully expect Teesside to keep the train rolling and get a decent win over Manchester this week. Be interesting to see if Manchester can bounce back from that game against Solent. They've had a couple of weeks off, I want to say, at least one, maybe 2 weeks since they played Solent. So it'll be interesting to see how they can bounce back. They'll be disappointed with how they played that game. But yeah, I expect it'll be, business as usual for Teesside on this one, if I'm honest.
Yeah, they've had 3 weeks off, so they've had plenty of time to try and bounce back. I'm just trying to. I have a feeling that these two met last year, didn't they? Yes, they did. They met last year in Manchester, and it was 14-52 to Teesside last year. So yeah. Manchester have obviously shown that the step up to Nines and the bigger field and the wider gaps, bigger space has obviously been a trick, something that they've had to try and overcome. And so, they've got some work to do, but, they've got some very good players in that side, haven't they? Across both sides of the ball, they've got some good players. So if we're trying to find anything, the progress could be to keep it close at the very least and improve on last year's score. Let's move over. Oh, you finished, or you want extra point?
Just that I wanted to shout out a good friend of mine, Holly, who used to play at the Bears, who's had a tough battle with cancer a couple of seasons off and is back playing Nines for Manchester this year. She's an amazing linebacker and she's all over the field. So I'm hoping that I can get there this weekend to see her play for Manchester. So just a shout out to Holly. It's amazing to see you back on the field and dominating. You have, hopefully, long may it continue.
That battle and obviously a mum now since she last saw the field, isn't she as well? So yeah. Congratulations to her for getting back on there, and hope it goes well. Try and stay safe, won't you?
I don't know if Holly knows what that means. I don't know if you've ever seen her play, Andy, but she's a heat-seeking missile trying to find a air to tackle. So I don't think she knows what taking it easy or playing it safe actually means. But I hope she comes through unscathed, and it's gonna be great to see her back on the field.
Super. Well done, Kiwi, for shouting that out. And then we've got a couple of under 19. Well, we've got under 19s Division 1 and Division 2 this weekend, and we've got a whole slate of games. There's some crackers across this slate, isn't there, Isaac? Some amazing games up for grabs this week.
Yeah, all we need to do realistically is look north of the border and see that Edinburgh Napier against EKP game. Two sides that, when they matched up before, scored a shed load of points and look like they're going to do it exactly the same again. So that one really is going to be the under 19s game of the week, just to see what them two sides can do again and see if they can carry on the way they have done so far this season.
Yeah. And Stuart, yourself, anything that you've picked up that stands out to you on this fantastic slate? Are you still there? You're muted, mate.
You're on mute.
Imagine
muting. I never mute myself. That's why I'm so confused. What's gone on? What I was saying was that Blitz Ipswich game is going to be a really interesting one, with Ipswich taking the win over South London Renegades last weekend. So they sit 1-0 and Blitz sit 2-0. And if Ipswich want to sort of take that division, now's their chance against a very good Blitz team who I'm sure will have something to say about it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they can take to Finsbury Park against the Blitz team there.
I fear for Ipswich Cardinals in that game. If I'm giving you my honest opinion, I think the Blitz and the 19s are back, and I think it's going to be a nasty one. But we'll see. Please prove me wrong, Ipswich. It'll be great to see you come out winners there, because it'll make that division very interesting. But we have the Rushmore travelling to Solent as well. Yeah, always love to see what happens in the 19s, especially at Division 1 level. That being said, we've got some Division 2 as well, Isaac. We've got a Northern Northeast Academy Giants are hosting. There's only 3 in that division now, isn't there? If memory serves, so they don't get to play too many games host many games on these tournaments, don't they? In the North Division 2. But what stands out to you here?
Yeah, it's that Scunthorpe Alphas against Yorkshire matchup again. We saw it Scunthorpe in the last tournament.
Drew it, didn't they?
Yeah, it went right to the wire. It literally went down to the last few players, and just a couple of mistakes from the Yorkshire side really let Scunthorpe be back into it. So that one's going to be interesting to watch again, to see how equal the two sides are, but also to see if North East Academy can start being the way they used to be. We know like last tournament disappointed, and they weren't anywhere near what they have been in recent years. So it's going to be really important to see if they can bounce back, and they're playing 2 big games and starting the game off against the side who are currently sitting number 1 in the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what did they do right against Yorkshire? They probably need to ask themselves that, don't they? Well, how did they keep Yorkshire to 8 and then find improvements on offense, which is easier said than done at any level, isn't it? And then if we skip over to the south, where Poole, you're hosting again. Good for you guys. You've got Bristol Aztecs coming alongside Oxford Saints and the South East Legion. They are called the still, aren't they? Because I'm sure I keep seeing the Kent Legion sometimes as well. But this is tricky, isn't it? Because obviously we've got this big Division 2 South division, haven't we? We had a cancellation, was it, or an abandonment of a more recent tournament, haven't we? One held in Oxford, was it? Might be wrong there, but so we haven't really got many points to take from, have we? Other than we've got the Berkshire Renegades, who are currently the Bristol Aztecs, who are 1-0, and the Poole and Dolphins are 1-0 because they had walkovers. That's all we've got, isn't it, from this at the moment?
Yeah, we don't really know an awful lot about this. I'm not sure Poole are hosting. I have a feeling that it might be the South East Legion that are hosting. I can't quite get my head around who or what they are. They're not very active on socials, in all honesty. So I think on League Republic it also says they're the South East Kent Legion. And I'm 95% sure I remember it saying that they were hosting. So I might just have not changed that and been lazy with my graphic design as well as my spelling from the Manchester Titans. So yeah, we'll get that corrected. We'll get that corrected before it goes out.
Yeah, South East Legion. Yeah, they're the ones who are hosting this tournament. So best of luck to them, and hopefully we'll get some results this time, which would be amazing to kind of see some forward progress in this division at the very least, to get an idea of what's going to happen this year. But no, plenty to, and I'm still intrigued to find out how Bristol Aztecs are going to do, because obviously they come from this wealth of of talent and a rich pool of players in and around Filton and Bristol and so on, and how well will they fare when they do get on the field finally and they come up against stalwarts and the Poole Dolphins and the Oxford Saints, don't they? So see what goes on there. Before we get out of here, anything else that I haven't mentioned that I need to remember? Yes, did it. After a couple of weeks off, I managed to do it. And
at least we didn't have to remind you of anything that you forgot. That's what normally happens to me. So I'm sure everybody is pleased that it's back to business as usual with nothing forgotten.
Kiwi, if it wasn't for you, there wouldn't have been a pod. So thank you very much for stepping in. I really appreciate it. While I'm picking up bugs from my children left, right, and centre. So no, that's obviously another bumper episode because we had a bumper weekend, so the fixtures turn into results and all that. But it's amazing to still get together with you guys and break it all down and see where we're at. And sooner or later, and it's only going to be 2 weeks, and then we'll be breaking for a GB bye, which is practically the halfway point as well, isn't it, for a lot of teams? So I'm really excited to see where this all goes. We will get together, me, Kiwi, and Aaron, to talk about the NFFL. It's well overdue now. Aaron's a very busy man, so to get him pinned down is quite difficult at times. But we will get it out and we'll review it because there's plenty to talk about there as well, isn't there?
I'm working hard on maybe trying to get us a guest to join us on a podcast so that we can excuse Aaron because it seems to be, as you say, he's a busy guy. So I will try my best. If anybody fancies having a chat on the podcast for Flag, then let us know. Otherwise, don't ignore me if I send you a message.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Come on and let's talk about all these amazing results that are happening. Plenty to talk about. But anyway, Stuart, Kiwi, and Isaac, thank you very much for your time once again, and to get together and break this all down for everybody. To the listeners and viewers, thank you very much for joining us once again. But we will catch you again next week to break down what happened this weekend, and we'll see you again very shortly. Thank you very much.